Hola mi gente, MsMalcolmHughes here. Welcome back. First things first, Happy New Year. Welcome to 2023. We're getting back into it with our first book review of the year. And that will be a book that I told you all I was reading last year, which is The Blood Trials by N.E. Davenport. Before we get into my thoughts, let's just give the general synopsis. So, The Blood Trials is actually about a young lady, Akenna, who is entering the blood trials in order to find out who murdered her grandfather, who assassinated her grandfather. That's the premise. She's dealing with that grief. She's having a hard time. That's where we're first introduced in the books of her doing grief-filled things, right? Making negative choices, getting drunk, starting fights, because she is so overwhelmed with this grief. And so she's kind of in a downward spiral. And one thing I can say I really appreciate about this book in comparison to the others that I've read is that I really believed her grief. I felt it as someone who's dealt with grief, who deals with complicated grief. I, in a very deep way, believed her grief and her pain at the loss of her grandfather. We then found out that her grandfather was the legatus commander, and which is like basically like the general of the military. It would be the equivalent. And so he's in charge of all of it. It is a white nation, and that is important because the grandfather is half black. Granted, there are different terms for this, but that if you want to boil it down, that's what it is. And so people are secretly against him, some are openly against him having held that position, and then it comes out, and this is something you get early in the book, this is not a secret, it's thought that he was assassinated. And so one thing he really wanted for Akenna while she was alive was to go through the blood trials, because he wants for their family to become one of the most powerful families, one of the lead families in that society. And a way of doing that is to have this legacy of those who pass the blood trials and essentially become a part of the different armies, but they're chosen to the most powerful of those. And so if they have a lineage of those who pass the blood trials, then become Praetorians, who are honored fighters, and you do that for so many generations, it's inevitable that you are going to have a powerful warhouse. She wasn't intending on doing that. She kind of threw everything to the wind, like I said, but once she finds out that her grandfather was assassinated, she feels as if becoming a Praetorian is the best way to be able to do it from a position of power and to be able to hold those accountable who assassinated her grandfather, bring them before the council, and demand blood for blood. Now, the blood trials themselves, we spend most of the time in the book with Akenna going through the blood trials. And the blood trials are akin to the Hunger Games. You're going through a number of challenges in order to prove that you are deserving of being a Praetorian. It's life or death. People die. By the time it's all said and done, the numbers are slashed significantly. I will say that this was much more gruesome, I would say, than the Hunger Games. Also a lot more honest, right? Like, I feel like there was depth to the characters that I really appreciated. You understood people's desires, the lengths at which they were going to achieve those desires, and just how out for self and people could be and have a disregard for others, even though it's supposed to be one nation. Very comfortable in real life. You know, I love that. The story is also very character driven. We're focused on the characters themselves. Obviously the plot advances, but I love that we get to go deep into the characters' minds, their ideologies, again, their desires and their motivations. I also think that Davenport did a great job. She did a great job of writing banter. I think that sometimes when you're writing such heavy emotions, it's critical to also be able to have laughter, right? Just like in real life, sometimes you gotta laugh to keep from crying. You have to have that camaraderie, that group of friends that see you through, that help you navigate these challenging times. So I really appreciated this about this book. again, very descriptive. Also, I just really believe their anger, really believe the frustration, really believe the emotions of everyone. I will say this though, I wasn't surprised. Like, the big reveal didn't surprise me. I kind of anticipated it at the beginning, not in the manner in which it happened. There was a complete like plot twist at the end, because me and Akina were gonna have beef. Like, if something had happened the way that I thought that it had happened, oh, me and Akina were gonna have problems. So there was a plot twist there that I really loved and appreciated. However, at the other big reveal, like after that, I kind of saw that coming. The like who did it, I saw that coming from the very early on. The big thing that I loved as well is that, again, it's comparable to real life in the sense that on the surface level, a lot of people's grievances and frustrations seems to be rooted in race and racism, but if you delve deeper, it's actually rooted in greed and the desire for power and control. So a lot to unpack there. I was surprised by how much I enjoyed this book. Someone recommended it over on Instagram, and based on the description that they gave and how much they raved about it, I was like, let me add this to my library cart and just see. And I was immediately taken by the language, the banter. It was fun, even though it was heavy. Again, for me, it's very important that these characters are believable. It's very important that the language feels relatable. And even though the blood trials themselves are not one-for-one comparable to real life, it was similar enough, but then it was also extreme enough that you appreciated the fictional aspect. So overall, I really enjoyed this book. I was so hurt when I was done, because it's a duology. I thought that the second book was already out because this book came out in 2020. So I just knew the second book was here. So I was ready. It doesn't come out until April of this year. So I was hurt. But that's how much I was into it. Without a shadow of a doubt, I'm going to read the next one as soon as it drops. I also like the story arcs. I like the way some characters change and evolve. I thought that was well done as well. I just thought this was a really, really good book. Surprisingly good. I would undoubtedly say read it. Again, if I'm basing it on my scale of read now, read later, or read if you want. So like read now, read when you have time, or read when you want. I would say read it now. Honestly, it was that good. It was also a book that really just pulled me in and never really let me go. I enjoyed it thoroughly. So I would definitely recommend it to all of you. If you haven't, if it's not on your radar, please check it out. Please put it on your TBR, but move it up on your TBR and get to it as soon as you can. So those are my thoughts. That's it for me based on the blood trials. I'm reading a few other books right now. Not sure which one I'm gonna finish to get to you all first. But let me know in the comments, what are you reading? What books are on your list of books to read for this year? And hopefully I'll get to read them and review and discuss them with you all. Until the next time, I'm MsMalcolmHughes, one who believes that books are sometimes better than people. Please continue to give time to be kind to each other, and to have the best day of your life on purpose. Peace, adabo, adios, ciao.